Welcome back to Prestige Motorsports. Today we're going to unveil two new combinations which we call our value series. So we got a small block Ford on this side and small block Chevy on this side. Alright, so we're going to start with a small block Chevy, mainly because it's got basically everything for the most part that the value series would come with. We're going to discuss this in turnkey form because a lot of people, that's what they ask, how much turnkey? So 383 stroker, stock block, cast steel crank, forged I-beam rod, forged DSS pistons, got our aluminum cylinder heads, and 383 valve covers. So this particular package, the long block from oil pan to the valve covers is $49.99, so it's $5,000. Then we add fuel injection, and you're gonna see videos coming out really explaining more in detail why we prefer multi-point injection over a centralized throttle body. So this one happens to be Holley's Terminator X. The price, the base price, or the cheapest option in multi-point is going to be the Edelbrock ProFlow you see over here. So entry-level price, Edelbrock ProFlow system, and then CVF Racing, fully dressed front end, air conditioning, power steering, alternator, water pump. That price turnkey is under 10 grand, coming in at $99.99. This customer opted to upgrade the EFI system to the Terminator X, so therefore it adds $1,000. So this motor with the Terminator X is basically $11,000. Now that is offered with 400 horsepower clear to 500 horsepower. The only difference is the camshaft. So how grumpy and how aggressive do we want the cam? Because certainly the manifold and the injection will support that 500 horsepower level. All right, so before we get into the differences of the EFI system and why we would really gravitate toward pushing you to the Terminator X, we'll talk about the Ford. So from the bottom up, this again is our value series. It's gonna be a factory production block, cast steel crank, I-beam rod, forged pistons, and our cylinder head. And typically the valve cover would be a cast aluminum polished valve cover. That base price from oil pan to the valve cover is going to be $54.99, so it's basically $5,500. With the Edelbrock ProFlow and the CVF you see over here on the front of this Ford, because Fords are a little more expensive to build, we're starting at $10,500. And of course, if we wanted to upgrade this to a Terminator X, it would be $11,500 respectively. So one of the things I'll point out with both of these combinations, the value series engine, I'll point out the three differences from our hot rod series. So first of all, we use a forged piston still, but it's an older design. It has a little bit thicker, heavier rings in it, which the cost is just a little bit cheaper in that piston design. We use a die cast rocker, which is a full roller coming from Comp Cams instead of the billet Scorpion or Prestige brand. The push rods are your traditional, call it a two-piece or three-piece. It's a fused ball end push rod instead of a one-piece push rod. Other than that, that's basically the only difference. And of course, with that price difference, we cover it with a 1-year warranty instead of a 3-year warranty. So when you look at the cost differential of roughly $1,000 from the value series you see here to our hot rod series, you can chalk it up in parts as well as receiving an extra 2 years of warranty that we're going to back you up with. So now let's talk about why we would upgrade from a ProFlow to a Terminator X. Also, before I get there, you'll notice he's got the ProFlow, but he upgraded the valve cover, upgraded the oil pan, upgraded the front pulleys. This one, everything was basically the same as it normally would come, except for it was upgraded to a Terminator X. So these are still very configurable for whatever you want to do. So let's dig into the EFI, and I'll start with the ProFlow. The ProFlow is a very complete kit. It is very nice. They typically use a low profile manifold, low profile injectors, so it keeps the rails low, and then the throttle body is actually a really low profile as well. It comes with the manifold, rails, injectors, even the distributor. The only thing that you're going to add to this kit is a remote coil. So very, very nice, bolt it on and go. Come over here to the Terminator X. It's going to use Holley's manifold and injectors, their fuel rails, their throttle body, their dual sync distributor, and of course this one, part of the reason it's a little bit more money, it does require the use of an external MSD box as well as the external coil. But other than that, that's really the only major differences until we get into the tuning side of things. So what I'm going to do is take you into the office here and show you what a map looks like when you're looking at it on a laptop versus this one. It's kind of unique, comes with a tablet, but it limits what you can do with the system, and I'll just show you where that $1,000 upgrade, why it's worth it. All right, welcome to my office. So I'm going to show you the software on the Terminator X, and I'm not going to get really deep here, but I'm just going to give you an example of what can happen in the car. So, you know, a lot of guys will mention, I'm not looking for a race car, or I'm not looking for, you know, the most power, or whatever that might be, and that's fine. I've mentioned it before about, you know, drivability, idle quality when cold start, deceleration, a lot of different, you know, areas. But I will also point out the Terminator X comes with a little handheld programmer. Obviously, if you get an engine from us, we've dynoed it, so the tune is in there. It's saved on the SD card. It will have your engine number. So there's no need to go through the setup menu. But the reason I pointed out is these are sold as you don't have to use a laptop to program it. But the glory is you can still use a laptop and program it. That's going to be the biggest difference between this and the ProFlow 4. So the ProFlow's got the little handheld tablet, or you can use your phone, as I mentioned. So that's kind of unique. Obviously, Holley's got the same thing on the little 3.5 screen. And you can use that for monitoring some minor tuning adjustments. But like we always say too, you buy an engine from us, we have a tremendous amount of service after the sale. The Holley Terminator X, or HP or Dominator, gives us the ability to offer an extended service after the sale. So we will remotely log into your ECU, we can assist with the first startup, we can walk you through the program a bit, we'd like you to go drive it. When you come back, we can transfer some of the data, smooth it out, and lock in a really good tune. So, alright, so up here at the top of the screen, you know, for those of you that aren't EFI savvy, the one thing about Holley's electronics and the way that they've designed this is it's very simple. So you've got a picture of a fuel injector. That fuel injector is everything fuel related as far as startup enrichments, acceleration enrichment, mapping, all of that. We have a tab for our sensors, so we can choose our sensors. The ECU, the picture of the ECU is all of our basic ECU data, cubic inch displacement, things of that nature. The TAC is going to be anything idle parameters. The spark plug is going to be anything timing parameters. So it's very user friendly. Okay, so now that we're looking at the map, I'm going to highlight an area of a traditional, more traditional engine package and camshaft. So basically it's going to idle in this area roughly if we have somewhere between 7 and 12 inches of vacuum, we'll say. So the point here is, I'll just pick a spot. This may be where it idles, this little square. For instance, if we are driving and cruising, as we drive and cruise, we're going to be down in this area. When we let off the throttle pedal and it's decelerating, you'll see this will have a bubble that traces this map. it's going to fall because it's going to pick up vacuum on decel, come through this area, and let's just say this area has too much fuel on deceleration. Well, we can change that. We can take fuel out there, but the point is as it dips here, it may fall and get gurgly, and as it's returning back to idle, if the engine is not happy, the idle air control motor can only do so much. It may pass the target idle point and fall up here, because now the motor's not happy, it has less vacuum. If there's more fuel up here, which traditionally there is, the motor's probably going to stall. So I would give you an example of a guy that's cruising at 45 miles an hour. He's going to be getting ready to stop. He just pushes in the clutch. When that happens and that tracer falls, it's possible that the thing will just stall. Or if we're at idle, we're holding the brake and we just do a quick rev or try to spin the tire real quick, it'll jump straight up, and if there's a little too much fuel here, when it falls back down, the same thing happens. It'll stall. So on a ProFlow, you can't look at these numbers, you can't change those numbers. And the one key factor is it will not learn when it's in deceleration. So if these fuel numbers down here are too large, or if it falls into fuel numbers up at the top that are too large, it will not learn that trend. So it's very difficult to get that engine to quit stalling. All right, so outside of the tunability of the fuel map, we have things like our target idle speed. Basically, what do we want for idle speed? We can ramp it up from, say, cold start at 1,000 or 1,100 and bring it down to 700. We have full control over this, so I can just highlight this whole thing and show you that I can, obviously I can move it up in smaller increments, or I can bring it way up here. That's a nice advantage, but also probably the biggest one, if we're doing a transmission package with you, the ProFlow does not have transmission control option. By simply clicking this toolbox, adding a configuration, we can add an automatic transmission config. Now you'll see at the top there's a shifter. Well, now we have full control of GM transmissions, Ford transmissions, Chryslers. So more flexibility. The reason, so $1,000, we have tunability, remote access, service after the sale, transmission function. We could also even add a config for nitrous. So let's just say, or boosted, but nitrous is another one. So the neat thing again is there's a nitrous bottle at the top. So very, very, very configurable for a minimal upgrade cost. All right, so hopefully I didn't scare you showing the behind the scenes of the Holley software. As I mentioned before, the wonderful deal with this is we can remotely access that ECU. You simply download TeamViewer on your laptop, give me a ring, and I'm going to pull that stuff up on my side, and I can assist you in the vehicle doing any kind of fine tuning. So to kind of wrap this up, obviously the main deal with this video was to unveil our new value series packages for small block Chevy, small block Ford, and I will say, I dare you to compare. Number one, quality of components in the motor with multi-point fuel injection and a full front runner for $10,000. And if you do find it, remember, we have a price match guarantee. If it's apples to apples, we're gonna match it.